Well, what do you know? Another Tuesday night. Yes, they do. They seem to come really fast. I don't know. Maybe I was just talking to Chris, who's kind of in the back right now, kind of waiting to pop on here. But we'll go through some of those things here in a second. But it just seems like these Tuesday nights, they come so fast. We get so busy with life and everything it throws at you. I know everyone can relate to that. But thanks everybody for being here another Tuesday night. This was one that coming off of being in Kentucky 2 or 3 weeks ago and kind of meeting up with everyone and seeing everybody again. I kind of wanted to get back with the guys at Foregate and talk with Chris and Bill. And Bill will be on in about 30 minutes. He's taking care of some family stuff right now. But I wanted to get the guys from Foregate back on, talk a little bit about what was going on, some new involvement. Chris will be able to go over some of that stuff in terms of his involvement with Foregate. Some of the things that have been done in the past, the present, the future, all of that good stuff. So there's a lot of things that have happened, that are happening, things with our whiskey club, all of that stuff. So lots of stuff with Foregate going on at this point. But let me pop back and say hi to a few guys that were in here right away. Mr. Jiggs was in here right away. Top Dog, good to see you, John. Sugar Kitty, as always. Mr. Roy R. Does Cocktails, good to see you, Roy. Mr. William Hall, Johnny T, good to see you. Keegan, good to see you. Mr. and Mrs. Schwartz, Mark and Kim, good to see you guys. Appreciate you coming in. Mr. Nate Cox. Matthew, how's it going? Matthew, Matt Barrel Lover. Appreciate it, buddy. Smoke and Firewater, good to see you, bud. What else we got? Terrence is in here. Doug H is in here. Forlorn Hope is in here. Good to see you, bud. Terrence Walker is in here. Mr. Bill Zier is in here. I said Keegan already. Mr. Shelton, good to see you, buddy. What do we got? Four Leaf Whiskey. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you as well. One other person I was fortunate enough to meet 2 or 3 weeks ago down in Kentucky. So that was awesome. Thanks, Terrence. I'll get you added in here right away. Appreciate that. Yeah. So you guys, a couple of the samples that are given away tonight. One has not been released yet. And one is the original 14-year Indiana Foundation that came and went. There were only, I don't know, a handful of bottles. So, Mr. Jarrell, how's it going, buddy? Appreciate you jumping in here. Mr. Blake Benson, I knew you, as soon as I probably posted, I knew Blake would probably be in here. So good to see you, bud. The franchise, good to see you, Gary. Hopefully you guys are doing well. What else we got? Hey, Brian, how's it going? Good to see you, bud. Appreciate that. Exactly. Did someone say Foregate? What else we got here? I think I'm all caught up now. So, all right, without further ado, let me bring on one of the guests tonight. So we'll bring on, this will be Chris Luttig. Some of you guys may know him as Big League Bourbon. Jesus. I barely even had it. I swear to God, I've only had one sip. But anyway, all right, enough of that. I see he's making... I can tell you're not laughing at me.
Hey, what's going on?
Oh my God, I'll tell you.
Yeah, hey, you really got me laughing because I've got young kids. They watch the movie Trolls, and the people that live above the Trolls are the Bergen. So you totally got me there, bud.
I'll tell you. I don't even know, like words or like all these other good things. But hey, man, thanks for joining tonight. I know it was a quick kind of spur of the moment thing yesterday and all of that, but I just kind of was thinking, boy, who can I catch up with? And I thought, Foregate, what can I do? So thanks for being on tonight. I appreciate it. So
yeah, for sure.
So most of you guys know Chris as Big League Bourbon. Let me try that again. So, but now you've kind of switched roles a little bit, kind of, and you've become the kind of official, I'll say official brand ambassador for Foregate. How's that been going so far?
Man, it's been going great. I've been doing that since, I believe, February of this year. I've been all over the country with these guys and representing the brand from Kentucky to Indiana, Arizona, California, Illinois, Wisconsin. Like, we've been everywhere. We've had some amazing events. We've got more events coming up in the next 3 weeks, like we just talked about, Florida, Texas. There's so much going on. It's absolutely awesome. And it's just great getting the Foregate brand out in front of people. as a brand ambassador, one of the most important things to me is just getting people to taste Fourgate, because, there are a lot of people that look at the price, they question it, like this weekend I was out in Fort Wayne, Indiana for the Big Red Liquors and Cap and Cork, their big bourbon expo. There were 72 tables or brands represented there. They did mirrored it on both sides. So you had your 144 booths.
Wow.
Both of our Fourgate booths, from the time it opened until the time it closed, were 50 deep the whole time. You could look at the other booths, like the two booths next to me joked with me that I had more people in line than they talked to all day long in a 4-hour stretch, and we were that way from start to finish. Like, I didn't realize it was already 4:00 when it was 4:00. Like it clicked and it went like from start to finish. And I was like, oh, it's over. I mean, we do those events. You saw us at Bourbon on the Banks.
Yep.
For other people that have seen us for other events, our lines are crazy, but it's the best way possible to get our brand out in front of people. And they walk away knowing and understanding what Fourgate's about and understanding the value of the bottle.
Yeah. That's probably a key thing right there, is because, you've heard it a million times. I have as well. It's too expensive. It's this, it's that, and always my justification was two things. Have you tried it? If you haven't, then maybe it's not too expensive, right?
Right.
Maybe, if you do that, or, and it gives you the opportunity to try it to see if you are willing to pay that kind of price. And I'll say third is, maybe don't buy one or two other middle of the road bourbons that you would have. Save up a few bucks and maybe spring for something that is, I guess I'll say, a little out of your comfort zone, or maybe you don't want to pay that much, but try something based on either reviews or recommendations, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
That's the way this all goes, because again, value is subjective. Everyone can't be millionaires. We get that, but
Right.
we all seem to buy, especially everyone in here or watching the replay or whatever, may buy a lot of whiskey. But, if you do want to try something that oftentimes is more expensive, I just say maybe buy one or two less of something and apply that money to, to a bottle of Fourgate.
That is exactly how I talk to people about it that are trying it for the first time.
Yeah.
If I can get it in your hands and allow you to taste through a couple of our offerings, you know what you're getting. And now you definitely know you're getting a quality product for the price, and you don't have to buy 4 things you might crack because you're chasing the next great thing. And you've got 4 bottles sitting on your bottom shelf that are going to sit there for eternity,
And we all have those. We all have, probably a couple $100 easy in whiskeys that just sit there that we took a chance on. So I say, even though there may be ones that you were going to take a chance on, consider one of these as one of those ones you're going to take a chance on. Save a few extra bucks, buy a bottle, something that seems like maybe it'll work, well for you. So, but let's talk a little bit about kind of your role. I know you kind of mentioned a few things that you've been doing. What are you kind of really enjoying as being kind of the brand ambassador for Fourgate?
For me, the big thing, I really enjoy interacting with people. I've got a passion for bourbon. I really enjoy it. I enjoy the history of it. I enjoy all the nuances of bourbon, and just getting out and being around a bunch of people. For me, myself, I came from the baseball background. So, you always have your locker room that you go back to, and, you have your friends that, when the season's over, you don't see them again until, if you're in college, the school year comes back, or if you're in pro baseball, until spring training rolls around. And I feel the bourbon world totally brought that back for me, because we go to these events and, we haven't seen each other in a few months, and we get together and it's like the gang's back together, the band's back together. Like we never missed a beat, and we just go out and hang out. So that part's cool. The other part at these events, when I get out there and get to talk to Fourgate and introduce people to it, it's fun and it's exciting. And I'll be honest, it's a little bit of a rush because, like I said, you get going and it just doesn't stop. And when it's over, you're like, it's over, know?
Yeah. Well, it's easy. Like you mentioned, it is easy if you have the personalities kind of like, I guess I'll say you and I are similar from that standpoint, is that's exactly it. The amount of pouring and talking and the passion just kind of, it just comes out. There's nothing you can do when you're passionate about something. It's easy to talk about that. It's easy to express, your thoughts and all of that. And I would say that was kind of the same thing with me early on with Fourgate. I mean, hell, that's going all the way back to, their very first, Kelvin collaboration, which was batch 1, and it was really early on for me that it was kind of like an appreciation for what I felt was higher end or high quality, bourbon that you weren't necessarily tasting that somebody else did.
Right.
And that's not even that long ago. What is that? 4 years ago, 4 years ago?
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
First release. The company was founded 6 years ago. The first release came out 5 years ago. If you ever look at the Kelvins, you know how many years it is based by the Roman numeral or the batch.
Good call. I never really thought about that, but that's a good way to remember that. But yeah, it was just kind of, and you felt the passion like right away talking with both Bill and Bobby about all of that.
100%.
You just knew.
You nailed that.
Yeah, it was easy. You could tell, and there's people you can kind of, see through them, or if there's some BS or whatever it may be, and you never got any of that. The good part about, I think, dealing with Bill early on was he was coming at it from our perspective of a whiskey enthusiast first.
Yeah, he started modernthirst.com in 2015. I mean, he'll tell everybody about that. I mean, I've been lucky enough to hear him tell the story, and if I can tell his story very well, and that's the other thing that I'm good at, and I've been around from the baseball world all the way through. I like sharing stories and telling history. You get to Bill started Modern Thirst in 2015 and got a handful of clicks. A year later, year goes by, another 18 months or so in, they're getting 500,000 clicks a year as bourbon started to pick up.
Yeah.
And the next thing Bill was working with a lot of major brands as a consultant, and ends up going to interview at Kelvin Cooperage for Modern Thirst, thanks to Bobby setting it up from meeting Bobby. And the next thing they're starting a company together.
Yeah. That like story in a nutshell is so like whiskey. It's all these connections and talking and communication.
Right. Because one person knew the other person, and that person knew this person, and it made it happen. I mean, I gave the Cliff Notes version of it, but it was pretty much just that,
Yeah. And you think about it from that standpoint, is that it starts with a couple conversations, and next thing you know, everyone's kind of on the same page, and here you go. Here you've got I guess I'll call it, amongst the big boys, still kind of a boutique kind of brand. But always kind of in my view, they've always done things a little bit differently, where the quality of the whiskey was first and foremost, and always talking to both Bobby and Bill, was they stressed it, was that we had to never allow for a finish to necessarily overshadow what the whiskeys were. Because if you're concerned with, buying or whatever is getting aged whiskey, whether it's bourbon or rye, what's the point of trying to cover up that flavor profile? You may as well have 4-year whiskey, and they're not.
You're hitting the nail on the head with the thought process of Fourgate. And a great way that I can explain that is going to that Bourbon Expo this weekend. The hottest thing on the floor was Amberwana finish.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had people going around and comparing all of them together because you had Barrel Craft Bourbon across from us with theirs.
Yeah.
You have RD1 just down the way, a few booths with theirs. Now, if you've had the privilege of trying all three, you have one that tastes like an apple pie. You've got one that's super hard cinnamon toast crunch, and then you come to the Foregate one, and you've got this Cinnabon without the icing that's got that doughy element. It's got that dry Jakarta cinnamon that's not sugary. It's got that earthy tone to it, and you can taste the actual distillate itself along with that. And that's because with that Foregate, you're talking about something, that's got around a 30-day finish on it.
Yeah.
Or some of these other brands, I'm not going to say which ones are which, but some have been in the barrel for 3 months in that Amberwana. Some have been in that barrel for 6 months in that Amberwana. And that starts to make a big difference because now all you're tasting is the Amberwana and the amount of oils that come from that wood and concentrate in that bourbon. That's why you have glasses. And we've all done this. You'll have a glass. You can't use that glass again. It's totally taken over from the oils. And I tell anybody, you could try our Foregate version of it. You can pour in there after a rinse out and keep on going.
It's probably honestly one of the only, I feel like one of the only Foregates that I've not tried yet. And I've tried, it seems like I've tried them all. And
well, we'll take care of that, buddy.
Yeah. It is one that I've not tried. And I'll say, admittedly, I was a little bit, it's not my favorite finish. And here's why I'll say that. It's not typically one of my favorites because of what you just mentioned. It's always so dominant that it doesn't matter what the liquid is that it's finished in. All you do is taste that cinnamon apple pie, that Amberwana or whatever it may be. You don't get anything else. So I've always kind of stayed a little bit away from it just because of that it's something I would never go to like very often. And that's really the only reason I haven't. And I probably should have, to be honest, just to see, because I know they do light finishes. They don't overdo, anything. So, all right, I'll have to give that one a try. So let's back up a little bit. And if for people who don't know your kind of story before all this, the baseball side of things, do you mind kind of just sharing with people? Because I know you had mentioned it before, but there's probably some people in here that don't know the backstory about Chris Luttig.
Yeah. So the big league bourbon thing, just like anybody else, trying to figure out a name, kind of a little spin or a play on things. And like I said, the whiskey community, once I got into it, really reminded me of baseball and the baseball clubhouse, just that camaraderie of being able to come together and stuff. So for me, it was easy to pick that name because, I come from a background in this area, the Illinois, Wisconsin area, played high school baseball, went on to play Division I baseball at University of Evansville. And then I was drafted by the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1997 and played in the organization for 4 years, got some time in big league spring training a couple years in a row before I decided to, of all things as a pitcher, blow out my hamstring, not an arm.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I tore my hamstring, so it actually popped from the bone, and I got the the bow and arrow tear right in the middle of it. Usually your tears are on the sides of those muscles. I actually split the muscle in the middle. So
was it while on the mound?
Yeah, that's one of my fun stories. I tell everybody I'm not a fan of Johnny Damon because it was right at the end of spring training. It was a meaningless game. We have one more game for the spring training season. I was pitching. It was the 9th inning. Threw a pitch in. He decided to bunt the ball. I came off the mound. I took 4 hard steps, and you heard the pop.
Oh,
and
no.
The pop in my leg was so audible. I can still remember it to this day. The whole crowd down in Bradenton, Florida at the stadium, everybody at once went, "Oh!" And I just kept on hopping on one leg. And thank goodness that the clubhouse was right behind the dugout. I hopped on in there on 1 foot on my cleats, straight into the training room. And I'll tell you this. I mean, I'll keep it as easy as possible. But when you pulled the pants down to check to see what happened, my leg was black from the back of my knee up to my glutes. It was black. There was a little bit of purple, but it was black already.
Oh my Lord. And it probably, like, you see, you always see that with, like, because it's easy to see, like, when you watch someone's like Achilles tendon like pop, but I'm sure it probably felt, it's the same type of thing.
Oh yeah.
And those are not injuries that heal very quickly. That's for damn sure at all. And maybe never heal properly. Yeah, my God. Let me see here. I was just trying to catch up to some of the other.
You mentioned that 14-year Four-Gate earlier, and you said very few bottles. You're correct. 3 barrels made 131 bottles.
Yeah, and it was a pretty. It was like what was it, like 140 some proof?
144.3.
Yeah, I knew it was a big one, and I've got a sample of it. I've got a bottle of it, and I've got a sample, and I probably wasn't going to drink I've always thought about, like, drinking the sample. I've just sat on it. Well, I'm like, well, let me throw this in here, and we'll get and be. So actually tonight there will be 2. So you guys see the little thing at the bottom of the screen. I've got one that I'm doing. Chris was nice enough to put a 4-pack of things together as well. And needless to say, he's going to be able to give you some great things. You want to just rattle off real quick what you're?
I got the Andalusia Key rye. So you got Andalusia Key 2, the first batch that Bill and Bob ever repeated in the Andalusia Key 2, and then the Andalusia Key rye. So those are going to be finished in a Spanish sherry and then a dark añejo rum. So Andalusia is the area of Spain, and the key comes from that rum coming from Key West. So the cool thing about it is you get to see how they're totally polar opposites with that actual finish. It's pretty wild when you get into that. And then we have our flagship split stave by Kelvin. It's a 116 proofer. That's finished in the proprietary cask made for us by Kelvin Cooperage. So they build a new toasted cask, and then they build a new char 2 cask. They take both those apart and then put them back together, alternating the staves so they look like a zebra inside.
Yeah.
So then that bourbon's finished in there for 45 days, and that's our flagship. And if you've seen it, it was previously on the shelves for MSRP of $179, but now they are $149.99.
Surprise, everyone. Look who joined us.
How's it going, fellas?
Good. How are you doing tonight?
Wait, turn that light back off. I'm just kidding.
The least you can see me, the better.
I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, thanks for what are we at? Oh yeah, we got you an extra 7 minutes, it looks like. You got an special early for us, so I appreciate you coming in. We've been chatting all kinds of things, so but hey, thanks for we haven't even gotten into the newest stuff yet tonight, so we've been kind of pumping the brakes waiting for you to join. So if for some reason there's somebody watching this thing right now, can you tell everybody a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, I am Bill Straub, and I am one of the 2 founders of Four-Gate Whiskey Company, and I'm the chief blending officer. Started the company back in 2018, and so Bobby and I, along with help from Chris here at Big League Bourbon, and our friend here in Louisville, Nick Nelson, who's our sales director, we operate the company.
That's it? That's all you got?
Well, what do you want, man?
No, all right. Well, you make it sound like it's so easy just to run a whiskey company. Guess we can all just start one of those, hey?
Hey, what's stopping you?
Hey, let's do this. So Chris and I we've kind of talked about some of the releases and stuff from kind of past and present, but let's talk about some of the newer ones that you're kind of up to, the last couple, and then leading into the kind of Kelvin 60 and all of that. But maybe go back a batch or two prior to that and kind of just share a little bit about what those were, and we'll kind of dive into the two that have kind of newest ones that have been recently released.
Yeah, so I guess if you're turning back the dial a little bit, the last couple that really people think about are going to be the Split Stave by Kelvin French Oak Rye. It's a Indiana rye in our split stave barrels, which we've talked about a million times on here, and hopefully most of your viewers are familiar. But to make a long story short, we have Kelvin Cooperage. They make two sets of barrels. One's toasted and one is charred. And they break them all down and they put them back together, alternating between the toasted and charred staves. So it looks kind of like a zebra inside. We have a flagship that I think you guys were just talking about when I joined. That's a 7-year bourbon. Well, this one is a rye whiskey, and so it's one of our limited releases. And that barrel is made out of French oak. So we took a kind of a spicy whiskey, put it in a spicy barrel, and it came out as a spearmint bomb. It is just the most refreshing whiskey I've ever had. It turned out better than I could have hoped. Really, really good, really tasty. Doesn't taste as much like a rye other than the mint on it. It tastes like a very sweet bourbon. And then of course there's a Kelvin Collaboration 5, which was we always put our best foot forward with that. It's the best blend of our best barrels. This past year was 7, 8, 9-year-old Kentucky straight bourbons. We blended them together, finished them in Australian Mariposa sherry casks and then Añejo dark rum casks. And that's kind of it's our calling card, the Kelvin Collaboration series. When, we talk to store owners and they say when people come into the stores and they know our brand already, that one of the first things they ask is usually, do you guys have any of the Kelvin collaborations? So
yeah,
it was our first batch was a Kelvin collaboration, and we repeat it every year right before the Kentucky Derby in the spring. Really proud of it. We always make sure that it's a banger.
So let's talk a little bit about the finishing process. I mean, obviously it's one of the things that you guys are probably most known for. So when it comes to selecting the types of finishes that you want to do and combining a couple of different ones, where does some of that come from in terms of, I know you're probably appreciation for different things, but when you're trying to decide like what you want to finish, the great whiskeys that you guys are getting, what's kind of, the thought process on that for you?
Some of it are things that we've tasted before in flavor profiles we've tasted before. We like to play around with that a little bit. We don't always particularly want to take just a sherry, a bourbon or rye and finish it in sherry. We've done that a couple of times, but we like to mix a couple of things together. We've had 3 finishes, 2 finishes. We like to play around with combining. We think dark rum tends to go really well with any type of fortified wine. And it really, one of the best things it really does with anything that you finish in a dark rum barrel is it really extends the finish because it coats your mouth on the inside, and it just makes that finish go forever with that kind of molasses note on the end of it. So particularly when we come up with a blend that we would really like the flavor of, but it might be just we feel like it's a little kind of letting you down a little bit on the finish where it just kind of drops off into nothing quickly. We like the first thing we think about is what type of dark rum barrels can Kelvin get and how can we use them to kind of to work on that.
And to that point, this is those things, because you hear finishing barrels, right? We all hear that. We know there's all kinds of things that are finished, but I would say you guys take it to the kind of the next level of securing some of the, I guess, more high end or more quality finishing barrels. I mean, clearly that was something you knew if you're starting with a great, base whiskey, finishing it in something that's not going to be such a great finishing barrel would be, kind of an offset. So, you securing these great barrels, these finishing barrels, obviously was something important. What kind of goes into that process of you guys securing some of those barrels?
Really, that was kind of the whole basis of the company revolved around a visit. I ran a bourbon blog for a long time, and my business partner Bobby had me come out and do a story on Kelvin Cooperage. He knew them professionally through his previous life, and knew the owners personally really well, and just really thought they were a great story. He wanted me to come out, take some photos, and talk about that cooperage. So I went out, checked it out, did the tour, was really impressed by it. The people that work there are all great individuals. The men and women are just fantastic. They're very much craftsmen and craftswomen who work there. It's not an assembly line. It's not automated. This isn't a factory. It's old school people with mallets and hammers, pounding those staves into place, and very neat experience. And it just, for about a year, it banged around in my head. I'd kind of gotten into a lot of world whiskey, scotches, and whiskeys from Taiwan and other places that I've always used these secondary barrels for their main aging purposes. Mm-hmm. And they have this huge spectrum of flavors that we don't get in American whiskey because we use new charred oak barrels every time, which means that the flavors you get out of a charred oak barrel are those traditional bourbon flavors. If you get a little bit of char, but you get vanilla and oak and some sort of caramel or something along those lines. They get that to a small degree, but they also get a huge variety of other flavors in world whiskey. So the whole idea of this came from seeing these great barrels in groups of 8 or 10 sitting around the floors in the warehouse of Kelvin Cooperage, and thinking how much fun you could have if you worked with them, with the Cooperage, to find cool ways to barrel finish it. So from the very start, we have been tied at the hip, happily so, with Kelvin Cooperage. They come to us with ideas. We go to them with ideas. Typically, when they think they've come into something really special, hopefully we're one of the first ones they give a call to. And we were very protective of the relationship, and particularly Bobby, who of course, his relationships are both personal and professional and go back a long way. So, I think a lot of it is some of those barrels Bobby seeks out. When sometimes he or I will taste something that we really like, and it could be a small Cooperage or rum, not Cooperage, but a rum distillery somewhere, and Bobby will reach out to them, or have Kelvin reach out to them and say, if you have any extra barrels, we'd sure like to buy some. And we always have them go into the Kelvin, and they check them, make sure they're in good shape. And then if they are, we'll use them. And if not, they just send them right back. So it really comes down to the relationship we have with the Cooperage, and the fact that Kelvin has been so willing to work with us and support us and help us grow has just been a blessing.
Well, and that's the thing, there's so much focus on mash bills and all these things within whiskey that it kind of seems like, and it's unfortunate, that the barrel kind of gets left out of the mix so often that, maybe outside of like talking about like finishing things, but like a main thing, and you're talking about Kelvin Cooperage, but having like quality barrels like that, how much of an impact it truly can have on a already great whiskey.
Absolutely. There's a lot of, I think Kelvin, I think they like working with us because we let them be on the creative side. A lot of people, when they approach the Cooperage, it's more of a commodity. How many barrels at a number 3 char can we get at the lowest price? Right. And that's not what we do. If we were distilling or contract distilling, we certainly would. But the fact that we get ours at least partially aged, what we're looking for past that is the very best barrels, regardless of cost. Mm-hmm. If you have a continuous still that can pump out, I don't know how many thousands of barrels a day, you're probably more concerned with keeping your costs down than you are with going out and having, craft barrels made for you.
Yeah. Chris, have you been over to Kelvin Cooperage?
I have not got over there. I've got to speak with them before a couple times, but I'm looking forward to getting over there. I've seen a lot of cool videos. Bobby's shown me some. Bill's shown me some he's taken. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild what they do over there.
I know. I want to get over there, but I've always been told, and maybe Bobby, I don't know if that's the case or not, but he's like, you gotta be prepared to get real dirty. I'm like, all right, well, I don't know. I mean, generally I'm there and I've got the clothes on that I've got, so I can't really like leave there looking like a coal miner or something.
Dirty is not the right word. You're not really gonna your shoes might get a little wet or dirty because it is a factory floor, but more like you will smell like smoke.
Oh,
but you won't get smudged or anything like that unless you start rolling around on the floor or jump into a barrel.
Okay.
In which case you won't be going back. The big issue is they don't do public tours. It's not set up for that. And it's probably an ocean nightmare for them because, I mean, you're standing 6 feet away from barrels indoors under a giant hood that are in flames because they're pouring burning charcoals into them. They don't use gas jets or anything like that. So it's an ocean nightmare. You will get sawdust in your eyes. Be prepared for stuff like that. So you kind of have to know them in advance, and they have to know in advance that you're coming, and then that they might take you around. Next time you guys are in town, we'll set it up.
Yeah, I know. I know Bobby's always said that. So, all right. So Dustin's asking, I don't know, where do you guys do your aging and storing in many barrels, both bourbon and finished casks?
We used to have contracts at several different places, Midway, Kentucky, Indiana, around a couple different places. But everything we do now is at Bardstown Bourbon Company. So all of our primary aging and all of our secondary aging is there.
About how many barrels are you guys sitting on these days, roughly? If you can say.
I guess it's not too super secret. Between 2,500 and 3,000 barrels.
Okay. All right. I mean,
it changes every day. So we buy some, we barrel some and use some, bottle it up, whatever the case may be.
The nice thing I like about that is just the perspective, because, Chris and I were talking about this too, about like affordability, right? And when you factor all of these different things in, why there are the costs that there are with certain, whiskey brands versus other whiskey brands. And when you put things in perspective of not only volume, but what it is you guys are doing. So, in the overall, aspect of things, you guys are on the smaller scale of that. So when you're dealing with high quality whiskey, high quality secondary, barrels, all of the other bottling, labeling, all these things, all of that factors into the cost of a bottle of whiskey these days. And to your credit, I'll say you guys from early on to now have been kind of tried and true, stayed right around that same price point where other brands have crept up in price, and you guys have kind of stayed really competitive, I'll say. So now that kind of shock factor of a couple $100 isn't nearly what it may have been a few years ago,
It's funny. I was talking to Bobby about it recently, and I said, when we started this company, our first batch was $199. Our investors were not waiting 5 years to return, to get any returns at all.
Yeah.
Our first release was $199, and when it came out, we were at the top on the top shelf. We were probably the most expensive bottle up there, at least tied for it. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at the top shelf of a big bourbon store, a bottle shop, we're at the low end of the top shelf. It's crazy how prices have gone. Now we've had some of our costs have gone down over here and there. When we switched to Bardstown Bourbon Company, our costs went down a little bit, but at the same time we were buying more whiskey, so those costs went up, and the cost of barrels kept going up. So we've managed to offset it. I don't want to, what we don't do is go out and try to cut costs left and right on the product, because we're very adamant that it maintain high quality. We don't ever want to put out something we think is cheap. We the only thing we've ever done that was a little bit cheaper is we switched to synthetic corks, and that's simply because our natural corks were breaking, and we got tired of that. So we switched to synthetic corks, which I think most people probably appreciate anyway. But we always use very expensive glass, very expensive labels. All of our processes are very expensive. Like I said earlier, we are not looking for commodity of barrels. We are asking Kelvin to go out and find rare stuff, really good stuff. And when they bring it in, sometimes they are shipping 8 barrels to Kelvin Cooperage from somewhere overseas. It could be in Northeast. It could be out west. That's very expensive to do when you're only talking about 8 to 10 barrels. Usually these barrels are coming in 80 of them in a 60 to 80 of them in a truck, and you're sending in 3 or 4 trucks, or they're coming in an ocean container. When they're bringing in 8 barrels, it's a very different story on your per bottle cost. So suffice to say, we don't try particularly to be inexpensive. Yeah. It's not what we're trying to do. It's not the product we're trying to produce. That's not to say we haven't put out stuff. Our batch of Tennessee bourbon was $150. Our flagship is $150. And we're conscious about that. We don't want to put out a flagship bourbon at $300. There's no point in doing that. But in order to do that, we had to secure that whiskey at a price that worked, and make sure that Kelvin was willing to work with us on those split stave barrels, which are very labor intensive and time consuming. They actually come in on Saturdays sometimes to do those for us. Which is overtime for their poor workers. We thank them very much.
Well, and there you go. I mean, there's another great example of that process. When you guys are using those, that split stave, that zebra effect. I mean, think about like those processes, like you said, how labor intensive it is. I mean, again, all of that factors into. But one thing I've always said about you guys from the get-go is the quality of the whiskey. It's never covered up by a finish, you can always appreciate the quality of the whiskey that's there, and that's for me, it's always been important because we've all probably had those whiskeys that have been finished and all you taste is whatever the secondary finish is. Like it could be water. I mean, who cares, whatever. So that's one thing. And the focus that you guys is oftentimes, I'll say no more than 45 days, anywhere from 25 to 45 days for a finish for you guys. Maybe,
we typically try to do at least 30. We just think there's a value proposition in saying 30 days, and there's no difference in price between 25 and 30 in cost. Yeah. So we typically do a minimum of 30. I would say we probably average between 45 and 50, but we've been out as far as 6 months. But we taste everything starting at 2 weeks from the time we put it in a finished barrel. We taste it every week thereafter until we think it's ready. And there's no set time on it unless you're talking about our single barrels, in which case we're shooting for about our private barrels. We're shooting for about 30 days for those. Again, but like you said, if you want to buy, we're not going to throw it in a sherry barrel until all you taste is a sherry. If you want that, go buy a bottle of sherry. Sherry is really cheap.
That's exactly it.
We want you to drink whiskey and just kind of add some of that character to it from the sherry barrel. So.
I think anybody who appreciates a good finished whiskey will appreciate that statement that you just made. If you want sherry, if you want your whiskey just to taste like sherry, save yourself a few dollars, buy yourself some cheap sherry, and have a good time, I guess, with that. I don't know. If you want a good finished whiskey, then buy yourself some Fourgate. So, all right,
exactly.
let's talk about the most recent releases. The Kelvin 60. I think for people who don't know the story, Can we talk a little bit about the story, then we'll kind of dive into the actual whiskey a little bit?
Yeah. So it's again, I mentioned we've been working with Kelvin Cooperage since the very beginning. It's a very, very important relationship to us. It's the best relationship that we have in the industry. They've been fantastic in every way. And they are celebrating their 60th anniversary this year. And we thought, what a better way to honor that than to produce something different in their name. And we have some really, really good 8-year-old bourbon that we just absolutely loved. And we thought, let's put it in a new Kelvin barrel. It's toasted and then charred. And we'll put it in there until we think it's ready. And it turned out to be probably, at the moment, it's probably my favorite thing we've ever bottled. I'm mildly obsessed with it still.
Yeah.
Just 125 proof on that mash bill is you rarely see it. And it is it's just such a full flavored, such a fun, good sip, especially as it gets a little bit cooler. I just like it more and more.
Yeah.
And it's so dark. I poured some samples today, and you could hold it next to even the Kelvin collaboration, which is 7 to 9 year old whiskey blended together. It's like ink next to it.
It's unbelievably dark, and that darkness comes through in the flavor profile as well.
It really does. I mean, it really does. I mean, when I tried it for the first time at Bourbon on the Banks, I think my reaction was probably the same as the vast majority of people was. It just kind of like took you back. Like I wasn't expecting that. I'm so used to Fourgate having finishes on things that I was looking for what that was, and I'm like, well, holy moly, this is just straight up double oak bourbon basically, and this is for me as good as it got. Like I think for a double oak like bourbon, this was a badass bourbon, for lack of a better term.
I love that it came out as a high proof. There's a number of double oak bourbons out there. They tend to be lower proof because, especially the bigger producers, they're marketing to the masses, and the masses don't always want 115 plus proof of oak hitting you over the head and bourbon flavors, barrel flavors.
Yeah,
we're not making enough of it to market to the masses. If the masses want to buy it, that'd be wonderful. But we know, we're geared towards the collectors and the people that really are really into whiskey and want to taste different things and have a lot of fun. Like look behind Chris's head at the big array of all the different, not just the Fourgates, but if you're the type folks who you have folks over to your house and you have your collection of anywhere from 10 to 1,000 bottles, and you just like to taste through different things. That's who we really, really want to get in front of as a company. And that's who we really want to represent. That's who Bob and I were before we started the company. We brought in Nick and Chris, and that's who they are. And that's very important to us. I don't want to bring somebody on board who's not really into whiskey and just looking for a job. That's not who we are. That's not what we're trying to do. So So yeah, I think it just turned out as beautiful, and it's hard to call 125 proof double oaked as delicate, but it's just it's such a tightrope you walk to get a balanced whiskey in a glass. It almost, when you think of it from that angle, it seems delicate. You're walking a tightrope to get everything to come out right. And this is one that just, for me, and hopefully for everybody else, it just hits all the right notes for me.
Yeah. It seemed, I mean, it was for me, like when it came to, when you dissect so many things, and it, probably by fault, and I'm sure you guys all do it as well. I'm sure some of the people watching or whatever it may be, but it seems so often that you want to have a whiskey and you're focusing on just trying to break it down all the time. But this is one that you can enjoy, and it just hits like all of those like sensory, whatever it may be. It is just such a fantastic pour, and the balance of it, I thought, was just spot on. I mean, I love getting tobacco on a bourbon, and and for me, that was when I first tried that bourbon on the Banks, it was the very first thing, besides a little bit of that hit of the proof, that caught you, but that very, as it kind of sat in the palate, that great kind of sweet, like maybe almost tobacco or a pipe tobacco. Loved it, and from that moment on, I was hooked on that one. It's a incredible bourbon, period. So
yeah, I have just I don't really have any complaints about it. Pretty much everything else we've done, I can go back and taste it, and I can, like you said, I pick it apart too. And I think, I wish I could have popped that flavor a little bit more. I wish it finished a little differently. You name it. But this is one of them that I keep going back to, and I'm not entirely sure if I would do anything different. If I can magically snap my fingers and change the chemical makeup of it, I don't know that I would do anything.
Let me ask you this. As good as this is, two things. A, would you finish it in anything? And B, if you would consider finishing it, what do you think you would finish that in? And is it a possibility? Is there a possibility?
I mean, it could always be a possibility. I mean, we do have more of this whiskey. We would have to find the really good barrels again, similar profile. Being that, I've kind of been on a kick lately where I really do enjoy the ones that are just aged in more oak, a little more traditional. So that I've been drinking, I have the Kelvin 60 in front of me, and I just poured the flagship. I've been drinking the heck out of this because it's just kind of like a pop of traditional bourbon flavors, which I really enjoy. But yeah, you could. I would probably go first towards a cognac type of finish with this. I think that real heavy oak, I think, would do really well with that kind of orchard fruit. Just a kiss of a cognac barrel for 30 days or something, I think could be interesting. And maybe we'll pursue something like that down the road. But to be totally honest, most of 2024 is already sketched out for us. It's either in bottles or in barrels or tanks even, waiting to be bottled. So probably not in the near future. But I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't play around with this particular mash bill with another double oaking and maybe something else involved.
Yeah, interesting.
Probably 2025 before we were to do that.
It kind of feels like something like that would maybe even hold up to, like Dustin had mentioned it, like maybe like a really nice, I guess he says Foursquare, but I'll just say like rum, just to eliminate a brand. But, I don't know. Do you think a good rum would hold up on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a cheat code. It has to be good rum too. You don't want bad rum. But a really good rum, particularly, I've really been into the Foursquares, the ones that don't have any added color or sweeteners to them lately. It's a more organic flavor. I think that could hold up well to this. I do think my only issue with that is that it seems more familiar to stuff we've done before. Yeah, because we've done a number of different, and we have a rum finished bourbon coming out. It's not a Foursquare barrel. I couldn't say if it was, I guess, but we do have a rum finished bourbon coming out in 2024. We've done one once before. So I'm not in a rush to do that, but I think we've done one cognac before, but we've never done a double oaked and cognac, and that's something that I would consider. It would either be late next year or sometime in 2025.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about this one, because this was unique when I saw it and I got more information from you guys on it. Now this has not come out yet. I thought you said this comes out first of 2024. The triple
come out right at the beginning of 2024. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this and what the kind of the story is with this, and maybe if you can kind of share with everybody a little bit on that. And I just thought it was different and unique. It caught me by surprise as to like what it was. So,
well, you saying unique makes me really happy, because that's really what we want to do as a company. We don't want you to come to us to taste, in place of throw anything out there, George Stagg or something like that. If you go by George Stagg, we want to be different. We want to do some different stuff, be a little innovative. And that's a weird one for me, because it's the only time where I did not like the base whiskey. I wanted nothing to do with it. I wanted to sell it. Someone contacted Bobby and said, if you buy it today, I've got a tank of some light whiskey, American light whiskey, distilled in Kentucky by, everybody knows who the distiller is. But we've got it if you want to buy it. And I was on vacation, so I didn't get a chance to try it. So Bobby buys it, and he tries it. And he has been thinking about this triple oak for years, because the idea was originally Kevin McLaughlin's, who owned Kelvin Cooperage when we started the company before he passed away, of taking a lighter type of whiskey, double oaking it and then triple oaking it in Kelvin barrels as an experiment. And I tasted it. He sent me a sample when I got home, and I tasted it, and I said, I don't like this. I can't imagine what we would do with it that would work. I think you should sell it, sell the tote. We don't want it. And he said, trust me, I really think this is going to be good. And he said, let us just do an experimental barrel. Let's pour a barrel into a toasted and a barrel into a charred cask. And we'll see what happens. And I tasted it after about 2 weeks, and it was a completely different whiskey, just completely different. And it was really good. And after 2 weeks, you could see the potential in it where I didn't see it before. Now it makes me second guess other whiskeys we've turned down over the years. And I'm thinking, what the hell did I miss out on? But he was very adamant that this was going to make a good whiskey. Bobby was. And when I tasted it, I said, can we get more of this? And I think he ran out and got us a couple more totes. So this was another one that Kelvin Cooperage had their hands in, and we're so glad they did, because Kevin was a very good friend of Bobby's, very, very close personal friend. Their kids played sports together. When he passed away from cancer a few years ago, it was very devastating to the whiskey industry, to Bobby personally. And so the fact that we could kind of carry out one of his, albeit small, visions is very, to us, it seems very fitting. So we put the Kelvin Cooperage logo on the sub label there. And I think somewhere on there, instead of TM for trademark, it says KM for Kevin McLaughlin.
Yeah.
I think that's Bobby hidden.
Bobby was telling me that, but I couldn't figure out like where that was on here.
Well, I don't have a bottle in front of me. My eyes are so small, but there's a TM next to the 4-gate on both the front and the back.
It's right next to the word oak, Scott. So
right
next to oak on the front,
there it is. Okay. All right. Cool.
And I couldn't see
the
anyway
logo on there.
Tons of light.
He snuck it in there a couple other places too.
And I know Bobby's like one for detail with all these like little kind of different like little things. And I mean, hey, I appreciate that he does those things. I mean, I don't know how many people would know that, but he knows it, and I guess that's important. So
it is. So this company is very personal to us.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm having a little choppy internet here. But this company is very personal to us. So when we can do things like that, sorry, go. I'll stop for a while until my internet catches up.
No, you're all caught up.
All right. When we can do little things like that mean something to us, and hopefully to the people who knew Kevin and people who know our company, it's something we can do that we enjoy. It's fun to us. It means something to us. So why not do it?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's all of that. So, you know what? I'm gonna pour a little bit since we were talking about it. I was sitting down with it the other night, just kind of.
It's a really unique flavor. It reminds me of a pie crust, not really the dark graham cracker, but.
Chris, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to jump off and jump back on. I feel like I'm having lag on my end.
Okay.
See you in a minute.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
So Scott, you're having the triple oak.
I'm gonna have a little bit of the triple oak right now. Let me see. Let me get rid of this real quick. I'll go back to this one and it'll pop back on. But yeah, so I'm gonna do a little bit of the triple oak on this one. It really it caught me off guard. There's again that sweetness, and I know Bill had mentioned kind of a pie crust, and that was something that you do. That sweetness, there's a little bit of that slight richness that's there that you pick up from it. So are we back on?
I hope so.
There we go. Back on. Look
All
at
right.
that. Yeah, the mouth, and this isn't like one of those like Japanese movies anymore. Yeah. No, we were talking like you had mentioned like a little bit of pie crust on this one. That there's definitely some kind of a sweet pie crust notes.
Yeah, to me there's a lot of pie crust. There's a yeastiness to it that normally when I think of yeasty, there's a certain distillery that everyone gets that out of that I don't always care for all the stuff that they produce. But in this case, I think it's really good. It's baked goods, but it's not particularly sweet. It's not heavy in a brown sugar or a caramel. To me, it's a light vanilla. That kind of flaky pumpkin pie crust without the pumpkin.
Are you saying this is 4Gate's pumpkin spice?
Well, it's coming out in the winter, not the fall. So
no, this is it. No, I'm just gonna tell you guys, this isn't pumpkin spice. Okay, don't listen to me. I'm just an idiot. This is not pumpkin spice. Okay, but
just the pie crust part of it. Just the pie crust part.
Just the pie crust part.
Not the filling.
It was. I mean, I think of all the things that you've done, this may be the most unique thing of all of the finishes and all of that. This may be, to me, the most unique thing you've done.
That's a tall order if you've ever tasted our batch 2 outer loop orbit. That's a
Oh yeah, okay. All right. Let me I have and going, I mean, that was like a spicy tang. That was like a piney tang, right?
Yeah.
Kind of and that was definitely interesting. Let's exclude that. Let's exclude that one. Okay.
Yeah, it's probably the most off profile. I doubt if you were tasting it blind, we would probably be the last company you would think that made that.
For sure. Yeah. I think it's but again, like you said before, I think this is kind of a cool little twist. You're doing something that's slightly different than what you're kind of used to.
We don't shy away from doing something different. We kind of hunt it out when we can, and that one just kind of turned out being really good.
Yeah.
Really like it. The more you drink of it, the better it is, I think, which is probably a good thing for us.
And maybe it's one of those whiskeys too that as the bottle kind of opens up a little bit and you kind of work it down, maybe some of the oxygen will kind of change, thicken it up a little bit, something along those lines. But again, I think for really all whiskey, you have to appreciate each one for what it is. You get into that comparison game so often that it's kind of unfair at times. But I'll be interested to kind of see what a lot of people really think when that one comes out. So
yeah. I mean, I think people are going to like it. It is not. It's different in terms of flavor profile, but it is still largely traditional whiskey flavors. I think it edges just a little bit towards almost a Springbank Scotch, an American take on Springbank Scotch, or a light single malt. To me, it tastes a little bit in that range where you get kind of the maltiness to it. I guess you would say that you don't typically get in a bourbon, even though it's a bourbon mash bill. It's not a high corn or super high corn or anything like that.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting take when you say like that yeastiness or whatever it was. It does kind of come across as a little bit kind of doughy or something along those lines. There's a little bit of
doughy is probably a better word. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's nice. I mean, it's really I when I first opened it, which was maybe a couple weeks ago, until now, I think it feels like it's tamed down a little bit on the sweetness and more of the decadence part of it has started to come out a little bit. Like it's starting to taste like a little bit like richer. I don't know if that makes sense, but it feels, I don't know, more like thicker, a little more dense or something than it did when I first opened it. So I like where it's going. That's for sure. So
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. I think a lot of our stuff tends to, I've always heard that people say get it below the neck and it's a different whiskey. I think that happens with a lot of finish, especially when we have like a fortified wine on it. I think it really helps to open that bottle up a little bit if there's a cognac or sherry or something like that. That one obviously doesn't have cognac or sherry, but to be honest, anything that has that much different wood influence probably could use a touch of oxygen anyway.
It's oily and creamy, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So Big Vic said it was an honor to meet Bill Straub.
Oh, he was a good guy. It was very good to meet him too.
All right, let's kind of flash forward into 2024 of what you can share. I guess or Chris, like what's 2024 look like for you with Fourgate?
I don't know what our calendar is going to look like. I know we are planning on doing some more spring training action, getting some good events going. Arizona, we talked about Florida. From there, you really got to ask Bill and Bob. They kind of dictate the schedule and what we're going to do next, along with Nick reaching out to the different heads of distribution in the different states. So, you know, I'm always all in wherever we're going and ready to get after it.
Yeah, just as long as you guys don't end up in any Cubs related stuff, you guys are doing a fantastic job. So,
and that's when this stream ended. All right.
Yeah.
Hey,
well, we're all going to baseball. All of us except the other two that are on tonight. We're all going to agree to disagree. We'll leave it at that. So, all right, Bill. So, what's 2024 kind of looking like? I know you were talking about things are kind of tanked, and what you can share. What's 2024 look like for Fourgate?
Well, I mean, we have most of the releases mapped out. They're all I think pretty much everything is already in finished barrels, tanks, or bottles. So you'll have the triple oak will be coming out. The Kelvin 6, that's about ready to be. I believe it's going into tanks. It's already in tanks as of now, or maybe no, it's Monday. I think it goes into tanks this coming Monday. That one is going to be a dark rum and Madeira finished bourbon. Slightly more age on it this year. It's wonderful. I am obsessed with Madeira and bourbon finishes. So we've been looking for good Madeira barrels for 4 years. We have a neat one going into barrels that will be Armagnac finished Bourrye, Brrye. That's coming out this year, and it is really unique, and it's so good. Before that, we have the Dearborn Pirates, which is a rum finished bourbon, Neho dark rum finished bourbon. Really tasty. That's already in bottles waiting to go. We're trying to be very judicious next year in 4 batches at once.
Oh,
you may have just you may have lost me there. There we go.
Wow, 4 at one time.
Yeah, we're trying not to do that. In the past we've had delays in bottling and with our distributors. Yeah, so we're trying to space out the releases a little better, and that means that we kind of have to get them in bottles sooner and then plan when we're going to release them. By the end of this year, we do have some very limited. They're really good. They're unfinished. They are just straight bourbon and straight rye, single barrels, 10 years old. Really good. Trust me on that. They're barrel proof. Fantastic. They're going to be out right at the end of this year in pretty much every state.
All right. So
that's another foundation and River Kelvin.
Okay, so that's kind of cool. All right, so you're gonna kind of go back a little bit and just release some straight bourbon, straight whiskeys as single barrels then.
Yeah, we always, whenever we kind of have stuff that we really love the flavor of, we like to let people taste it as is. You know, we've had 2 releases of River Kelvin rye, 7 to 8 years old. Well, those barrels are up to 10 years now, and we kind of thought it's probably time. Plus, we haven't done a lot of single barrels outside of our private selects. Right. So we thought it'd probably be a good time to let people taste some of that. And then the bourbon is really good. It's 10 years old, barrel proof, minimal filtering, no chill filtering, unfinished. It's worth it to release it as is for us, just because I really love it. I'm a big straight bourbon guy anyway. So I'm very happy to have some good enough whiskey to do this too. And, you know, we don't do it all the time. We only do it when there's an occasion to. If you've had our batch 3 or 5 foundations, they were crazy good. The Indiana foundations were crazy good. The whiskey itself was just so good that we wanted to let people taste it as is.
Well, and that's the best part of that is that, you know, when you come across those select few barrels that you have that you want to share with people, like just not throw a finish on them and let people taste the whiskey for what it is, then, you know, perfect. And I, like anybody else, I can appreciate a great, you know, single barrel of, you know, whatever it may be. So,
and we will be using these in blends and finishes as well. But sometimes we just want to let people, you know, we talk all the time about how we only use the best whiskey we can find. And, you know, we want you to be able to taste it and know that we're not full of shit, you know.
Yeah.
This is great whiskey that we're putting out. So when you see 10-year-old over the next year in a bottle, and you have one of these bottles sitting at home, you'll know exactly what that 10-year component is. It's not cheap. It's not garbage. It's great whiskey. It really is.
Well, I think I've said to you guys all along, I mean, that's really where it starts, you know, is getting that quality whiskey, you know, first, and what you choose to do with it, you know, from there. It says a lot about you guys as a company, you know, what you're willing to do, what you're willing to finish, all of those things. So, I mean, I think for me, it's probably one of the reasons why I've, you know, continued to be such a huge fan of what it is that you guys do. So.
I appreciate it. I've always thought you can't make a bad whiskey good with barrel finishing. It's really hard to do. I wouldn't be good enough to do it consistently. So, and you can screw up a good whiskey with bad barrel finishing. We're very careful with what we do. But we always, again, when we use the name foundation, it's because good whiskey is the foundation of everything we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes we come across some stuff and we think that there's a market for it, and we think there's an appetite for it, and we really want to share it with people to let them taste it as well.
Will one of the new single barrels that are coming out, will one of them have the name foundation in it, or no?
Yeah, the bourbon will be foundation.
Oh, well, okay.
And the rye will be a River Kelvin rye 10-year.
Okay. All right. Well, that's one thing you guys always are doing, is focusing on all the good stuff. So, all right, what do you guys say we pick two winners tonight, and we'll get some more Foregate in their hands. So I think we'll cut it off right now. Thrasher was the last one in. Says holy moly, Foregate Whiskey Company. Chris is on this stream, so yes, your Thrasher is starstruck when he saw Chris on here. So.
He was a great guest out at Pours in the Park. Me and him got to hang out, have some fantastic Foregates and some other stuff. We might have seen the sunrise one night, thanks to Zach from Bourbon Kingdom.
I don't know if we need to hear the whole entire story on that one or not, but
Zach broke out some King of Kentucky in a presidential, and I broke out some good Foregate, and we had cigars. Okay. It was innocent. It was innocent.
Okay. I believe you. So, well, before we get into all this, to both of you guys, you know, thanks for everything you do. I mean, obviously, Bill, I've said it to you a million times, you know, I mean, what you and Bobby have done with Foregate is, you know, in my opinion, absolutely incredible. I appreciate what it is you guys do, the transparency, friendship, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just fun from the outside looking in to just kind of see where it's kind of, you know, come from and you know, where you guys are and where you're going. So, you know, congrats on really everything. So.
We enjoy it. We'll have to have you come to one of our bottlings or something sometime too.
That'd be kind of fun. As long as it's like a little spigot, I could just kind of a cow type of deal or something like that.
You can just lay down on the conveyor belt as it comes through.
That was probably a little creepy, but hey, we'll leave that alone. So
yeah, you were just getting a little Wisconsin, you know. I saw where you were going. I was
trying to get all cowy. I was trying to get all like Midwest on you guys there a little bit. So all right, let's do this. Let's draw a couple names, and everybody watching now and on the replay, you know, you've seen myself, a lot of other people, talk highly of Fourgate, and there's a reason for that. It's a high quality, top notch whiskey. Like Chris and I were mentioning before, for anyone who says it's too expensive, I've said it 1,000 times. Buy less of a couple other bottles, save your money, and trust us. Find some reviews, get some suggestions from other people of a bottle that may work for you, and spend the money on a high quality whiskey. You'll truly see the difference in what that is. It's hard to say that until you're able to really try some things, and you'll get a better understanding for what that is. So that's my Fourgate pitch. Hopefully you guys appreciate that. So let's give away some Fourgate tonight. So what do you guys say?
Sounds good to me.
All right, we'll go with Chris's first. Chris was nice enough to put a little 4-pack together of some great things. So let's do this. Let me get whoops, wrong one. Where is that? Share screen. There we go. Okay, let's find this one. All right, here we go. All right, here's the. Let me know everybody can see that. Okay. Okay, let's see. Let me shuffle it up a couple times. We got everyone's name. So like the thing was, any $5 donation counted as 1, 10 was 2, so on. So you guys can see all that. Actually, you know what? Let me unshare this because you guys have got it on the. Hang on here. Let me go back and let me get rid of this. There we go. Now I'll be able to do it. All right, here we go. This should be a little better now. So, all right, we'll shuffle it up. This will be for Chris's 4-pack that he'll be giving you. So here we go. All right, here we go. The spin of death here. All right, first up, we got the winner is, oh boy, Bourbon Matchmaker. All right, congrats. We'll remove you from that one. So congrats. Let me write that down. So Bourbon Matchmaker. And you can just send me if you want to send me an email, I'll get it off to Chris. So
Scott, I think that's my friend Tomas that lives close to me. I think he's the one who just won that.
Well, there you go. Even better. You guys can make a date of it and share all kinds of other things and whatever. I'll leave that up to you too. So, all right. So here will be my 4-pack or 5 or whatever. I'll throw in a little extra something. Maybe I'll even throw in the Kelvin collaboration 1. I've got some of that stuff sitting around. So let me shuffle it up here 3 more times, and we'll give the Fourgate wheel a spin here. See what we get. Mr. Mad Barrel Lover, congrats, buddy. All right, that's awesome.
That's a new name in the chat for me.
So I know Matt just through Patreon, and he was also down at our when we did our community blend when we were down
at Barrel King.
Yeah, when we were down at Barrel King, we did that. So he was one of the guys helping with the blend. So congrats, Matt. Appreciate it. So, gentlemen, I use that term extremely seriously. But no, in all seriousness, I appreciate your time. I always like kind of catching up and just seeing kind of where things are, where things are going. And it looks and sounds like Fourgate is not only in good hands, but we are moving forward, not only 2024, but we're going to go into 2025 minimum and get you guys more whiskey is what it sounds like, right?
It sounds like it to me.
I like it.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, hey guys, thanks so much for joining tonight. Appreciate it. Everyone watching tonight and everybody who participated in the contest, thank you guys so much. Appreciate all the love and support. If you haven't kind of gotten into Forgate yet, do yourself a favor, find some. Either Chris or Bill, how many states are you guys in? And if you can't find it in your state, what are a couple of retailers people can go and find some Forgate at?
We are in 11 states right now. We will be in Kansas before the end of the year. We'll be in North Carolina at the start of the new year. Very limited in Kansas because it's a controlled state. And this will be our first announcement of this in the United States anyway. But we are exporting to Australia now as well. So the honeybarrel.com.au will, if you're watching us from down under, will be carrying us in Australia. They can do a limited distribution to brick and mortar stores, but by and large, I think you want to order from their website. So our states are Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, Louisiana, Indiana, Illinois, Colorado, California, Texas. Did I miss any there, Chris?
Arizona.
We love. Actually, I love Scottsdale, so I shouldn't have forgotten that one.
We had a good time out there. Great people, great stores.
Yeah. Great whiskey scene, great cocktail scene. Love it out there. Great golf
cocktail scene out there.
Scottsdale's probably one of my favorite places. Love Scottsdale. Good.
Great golf courses. I don't know if anyone cares about that, but online you can find us at sealbox.com. Let's see, bourbonoutfitter.com and the sharedpour.com. And I think Caskers as well. Yeah.
Caskers, yeah.
And there's the other thing. So the excuse of not being able to find stuff where it's not in my market, that's no longer an excuse. With online retail, you can get it just about anywhere as long as they're able to deliver it to your state. So, but anyway,
and we're working on more states. It's coming. There'll be a handful more in 2024 as well.
Good. Well, because I know like the yields have continued to creep up with you guys. So the bottle counts and all that have continued to grow. So I suppose it needs to be more.
Part of it is just keeping up with the demand of the states we're in. And, there's 4 of us. So, it's not a matter of just sending it to a state. You have to be able to get out there and talk to the distributors and do on-site training with the bartenders and the retailers and tell them tell them the story of the product and, tell them how to sell it and who to sell it to. When you only got 4 people, it's a little bit of a challenge to do that. So we have to grow judiciously and be smart about what we do and make sure that just because we go into a state, we got to make sure that we can actually support it. Because there's a lot of requests when you go into a state, there's a lot of requests for your time and your attention on that state. And with 4 of us, it's tough. So we'll probably look at adding a face or 2 in the next couple of years as well. So
if you need an extra guy January through May to go to Scottsdale specifically, I know a guy. Just saying. So, but anyway,
I can always plan a spring golf trip somehow around
just saying. I'm just saying. So thanks, guys. I appreciate everybody. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Find yourself some Forgate. You guys you'll appreciate it. But thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Scott.